Welcome, everybody. It's on the hour, so we will begin the seminar. My name is Lini Wollenberg. I am from the Alliance of Biodiversity in SEAT, and it's my great pleasure to host this webinar. I lead the Inclusive Digital Tools project of the Agroecological Transitions program, and today we're here to discuss how to increase the digital agency of farmers for agroecological transitions. This is the result of a 3-year program funded by the EU and IFAD, and today we're going to offer our final recommendations and a framework for digital agency. So we've had a really fantastic set of partnerships, especially with IRI and Solidaridad, and great support from our donors. And in the last 3 years, we have been able to take stock of agroecological digital resources and identified exemplary features of those. We have identified 6 principles for improving the social inclusion related to digital tools. And most importantly, and what we'll be discussing here especially, is we've dived deep into the digital ecosystem in Brazil for livestock and for rice in Vietnam to really understand how we can move that agroecological needle further and improve social inclusion. And we have really great speakers to share those results with you today. So where are we in the digital transition for agroecology? I think we've learned that digital tools can really empower farmers, but it's still driven by very top-down processes by the digital developers themselves. And so the knowledge reflected in digital tools is all too often not that of farmers. We need more farmer-centric engagement processes. We need to enable co-creation of agroecological practices or agricultural practices generally within tools, not just the design of the tool, but the design of the practices. And we need to have that human connection, human intermediaries, the soft part of how tools are used to make sure that we're moving forward with these knowledge systems. But ultimately, we're still just at the tip of the iceberg. We can see that AI is going to make a huge difference in making some of this possible. And ultimately, we need to complement the digital tools with the societal transition as well. The digital tools really only reflect the state of agroecology and society. So we'll have limited behavior change until we can see more of the finance and the policy complementing and supporting our digital tools. So in the spirit of advancing the knowledge component of digital tools, that is what we're here to discuss today, and enhancing the digital agency of farmers in that knowledge process. It's my great pleasure to kick off the webinar with our first speaker, Mariette McCampbell, who is a digital and social inclusion specialist and will present our ultimate project framework. Over to you, Mariette.
Thank you so much, Lini. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you should all be able to see my screen now. Lini just now, I think, gave a great introduction about, what transitions and AT-DT is about. So I won't be repeating all of that. But what I want to highlight today is actually that a lot of the work that I'm presenting to you is actually building on a policy brief that was published at the end of this project, of the AE-TPP project. And that was also co-authored together with Lini and with Carl Dittmer and Sadie Burns. I really encourage you to have a look at this policy brief after the webinar and read it if you can, and also have a look at the other materials and the fantastic work that this project team has been doing over the course of the project. So as you can see on the screen now, in our project, we use a number of central values, and those are co-creation, empowerment, and agency. These are values that are very essential elements of the principles of agroecology that you see on the left-hand side of the screen, and especially those related to social equity. And I don't want to go into detail about agroecology today, I don't have the time, but essentially, this is all about, seeking sustainable farming systems that optimize and stabilize yields, fostering food security and nutrition, and also promoting social justice and nurturing identities and cultures, and seeking to strengthen rural livelihoods. And to achieve this, we strongly believe that within the sets of principles of agroecology, and there are different ones that have been developed, this is just one example, it is very important to focus on the values of co-creation, empowerment, and agency, and also how these then foster the social equity principles of the agroecology principles. And so this is really critical to achieving strengthened resilience and resource efficiency. But what is then the link between co-creation, empowerment, and agency and the digital resources? So let me talk about that for a moment. And I'm sure you've observed that the digital tools are increasingly used to provide technical assistance to farmers and to also perform farm assessments. And although there are hundreds of digital tools and services that are existing today, their adoption by farmers is low. And not all of these farmers actually see positive impact from the technologies. And that's why organizations like the CGIAR and the ATDT projects are focused on closing the digital divide. And that refers to identifying and removing barriers that individuals and groups experience when trying to access, use, and benefit from digital tools. And initially, we've very much focused on access, right? Solving issues around people's access to infrastructure and connectivity, making hardware and software available, and looking at affordability. But it became clear very quickly that access is actually meaningless if a person does not have the literacy to meaningfully use digital tools and to understand, for example, value of data. So we started focusing on digital literacy. But even that, we know that access and literacy remain challenges, and they keep some people from accessing digital resources at all, and others are being threatened to actually not be able to continue using them, especially also with the introduction of artificial intelligence. And even people that do have access and are being literate, we've seen that their adoption of digital resources remains very minimal. The adoption is a real problem, and it demands us to ask who is actually benefiting from these tools. So too often, the added value of digital resources is not very clear. Sometimes it isn't even there, and often it's very unevenly distributed. So in ATDT, we also found that the way in which we have been looking at the digital divide and social equity overlooks agroecology principles of co-creation, of knowledge, and the agency and empowerment. And that's problematic because it means that farmers do not participate in digital knowledge systems and that their knowledge that's available through digital advisory tools is incomplete. In our project, we concluded that co-creation of knowledge is thus a core principle for developing responsible digital advisory tools. And so co-creation is all about collaborations between diverse actors, ranging from scientists and policymakers to all kinds of agricultural producers and local actors. And the aim is then to integrate diverse types of knowledge and jointly develop solutions to agroecological challenges that are contextualized and sustainable. When we involve farmers in both the design and the content creation, we ensure that the digital tools are more relevant and that it actually empowers local communities and indigenous communities. So making co-creation central is how we approach social inclusion, gives us a different model. And that's a model that's based on farmer agency. And I'm going to briefly present it to you now. So the foundation, as you may see, of this model is still the digital barriers, barriers that still need to be addressed to foster equality in access and digital literacy. And it allows more and more people to use them digital resources. These are the three dimensions that help overcome digital barriers. But being able to just access a digital resource does not mean that it's also good for you as a user. And so to judge if a tool is a good match and is being useful and is trustworthy, you also need to have that level of literacy to actually, and being empowered to actually judge that. It brings me also to the question on the top of the pyramid, which is still the benefits, because big missions and impact claims from developers have little meaning to a user. A user eventually is only interested in tangible benefits that add real meaningful value to themselves, their families, and their farming practices. So the time and resource investment needs to be leading to a positive change that is, quickly visible. And it also needs to be very clear that there are no risks involved. So it's not just only about the positive side, but also other potential harms and negative consequences. So, and lastly, we put co-creation at the center because we believe that bottom-up knowledge inputs, inclusivity and representation of farmers needs our attention. And that means participation of those who will be using the digital resource, but also participation of those who will be affected by it. And we can really trust that when farmers face challenges, they are already trying to find solutions to those. So if we do want to develop a digital resource for an agroecology problem, farmers are very likely able to provide invaluable insights for that solution. And not only does that then result in better tools that embrace diversity and integrate a variety of unique knowledge systems, it also empowers communities, prioritizing their needs, their interests, capacities, knowledge, and practices. One note I want to make there is that co-creation is a continuous process, and thus participating needs to have a real influence and the power. Otherwise, if you don't give that continuous process, the power will eventually return to the developers. And that means that participation becomes tokenist. I think it's important to stress that. I want to finish with one slide that gives you some practical recommendations for using digital tools for knowledge co-creation and fostering digital agency. So to enable farmers' digital agency, you need tools that integrate agricultural content and practices that come from diverse knowledge systems and that bring together the perspectives of varied actors, including farmers and, for example, extension agents. So you give a say in the content creation to farmers. Be aware that different knowledge systems may compete and that they may be affected by power relations and social cultural dynamics. And that means that you need to consider this in any decision-making process. Ultimately, what you want is to develop and promote tools with co-creation functions that enable two-way communication and that not just send or disseminate knowledge. So it means you want to look for features like a chat functionality, interactive voice response, and user experience services. Or, for example, participatory photo and video. And finally, the presence of human intermediaries and champion users are a very good telltale that a developer has actively been seeking to engage users and to try and remove access literacy and participation barriers and work on building farmers' trust. I'm going to stop there. And I'm very much looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have in a minute and to listen to the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariette, for that excellent presentation. And please do put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll have about 20 minutes at the end of all of the presentations to have more discussion. So now we understand that co-creation is part of this larger framework of digital agency. And to see how that is applied, we will turn to Violaine Lorenz from Solidaridad, where she is the Digital Solutions Manager for Solidaridad Latin America. Violaine?
Thank you, Lini. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I work for Solidaridad, an international nonprofit with a 50-year track record fostering inclusive and sustainable value chains in agriculture and mining. And we work in more than 40 countries, including Brazil, where we were the implementation partner of the AE-TPP project. So I'm just waiting for my slides. Yes, thank you very much. You can go next. So before sharing our experience and learnings from Brazil, I would like to start by introducing you to Viviane, who is a livestock farmer from Novo Repartimento in Brazil and one of the leaders of this project. So no one better than him to introduce himself and talk about his farm and his work in Pará. Great. So I will share the link afterwards, and you can have a look at these videos from Viviane. So he's one of the farmer in our project. So he manages dairy and beef cattle, and he's also a digital influencer and one of our ambassadors for the agroecological transition. So he was actually among the first farmers in his community to adopt rotational grazing. And he really took a bold step of reducing his pasture area to diversify his production by introducing other species and crops like acai. And on top of that, he creates videos to share local solutions he's implemented on his farm. And this video is a great example of the kind of content that are featured on Solis, which is the digital tool that we developed through this project. So I invite you to have a look afterwards at his channel. So you can go to the next slide, please. So just a few words about the context. So the region where Viviane raises cattle, which is the state of Pará, is one of Brazil's major cattle hubs and a hotspot of deforestation. primarily driven by the expansion of cattle and soy farming. And in family farming, which represents the vast majority of farmers in Pará, the combination of low livelihoods and a critical lack of technical assistance hinders productivity and leads to increased pressure on the environment. So we, as Solidaridad, have been working in the southern region of Pará along the Trans-Amazonian Highway for over 10 years, supporting farmers in their transition to low-carbon, climate-resilient production systems. And a key pillar of our intervention model has been the use of digital tools to deliver technical assistance. And actually, in fact, the conditions for adopting digital tools in this specific part of the Brazilian Amazon have improved significantly in recent years. So most farmers have stable internet access on their farms via satellite connections. All farmers own smartphone and actively use WhatsApp. And social media platforms such as TikTok and Kwai are widely used, particularly among younger farmers. So we do not have issues in terms of accessibility. And within this context, we saw an opportunity to leverage digital tools and the dynamics of social media to enhance farmers' agency and support the co-creation of knowledge for scaling agroecological practices. So next, please. So our innovation in Brazil was built through a highly participatory process that led to the creation of this digital tool called Solis, designed with enabling mechanisms for continuous co-creation and engagement. So the tool Solis is the most visible output, but the true innovation lies in the synergy of these three elements. So let's start with the process. From the beginning, farmers were actively involved at every stage, and we set up subgroups with women and youth who showed strong interest in digital tools. So we invited farmers to share their perspective on the challenges of adopting sustainable practices, their needs and their expectations. And a key issue that they raised was the lack of practical, tailored information adapted to their reality. And they also highlighted their use of social media to access information on farming. So using these insights, we shaped the tool's value proposition, focusing on improving information flow among farmers, extensionists, and experts to foster knowledge co-creation and support both individual and collective learning. And this process led to the co-design of Solis, which is a simple mobile app integrated with WhatsApp, and extension solution, which is another tool by Solidaridad designed for extensionists. And to deploy and scale Solis effectively, we created enabling mechanisms to support co-creation and promote wider adoption. I'll share more on that just in a moment, but first let's take a look at Solis interface. Go next. So Solis has two main features that function either independently or together. The first one is a tailored action plan that provides guidance for transitioning to agroecology based on a diagnosis of the farm. And the second and the most innovative feature is a digital learning community that works as a social network. So farmers and extension staff can share and access videos on key agroecological practices and experiences from other people in their region. And the idea behind Solis is to offer a simple, intuitive way to share valuable knowledge with farmers, knowledge that already exists, but hasn't been widely shared or tailored to the realities of family farming. So in that sense, Solis is designed to be a multiplier of community-driven knowledge at scale and to spark new exchanges between farmers, extensionists, and experts. Next, please. So what we call Solis is not just the app, it's really the social innovation that combines digital resources, in-person and online engagement to foster co-creation and enhance farmers' agency. So for the co-creation of practices, our approach consists in organizing field days, trainings, and demonstration units with groups of farmers, and then scale the reach of these experiences by producing and sharing farmer videos through Solis. So in the fields, farmers, extensionists, and experts identify agroecological practices suited to local systems. Then the key moments are captured as short knowledge fields and then uploaded to Solis. And later, farmers film themselves applying the practices, sharing the benefits and the challenges. And Solis also supports live updates from demo plots. So even farmers hundreds of kilometers away from the demonstration unit can follow progress and ask questions in real time. So this combination of hands-on activities in the field and digital sharing is designed to strengthen farmers' agency by giving them an active role in shaping practices, sharing knowledge that reflects their reality, and learning from another. The second key mechanism focuses on building local leadership to bring the digital learning community to life and ensure its longer-term impact. So to achieve this, we developed an ambassador program that engaged volunteer farmers, mostly under the age of 30, and extensionists to champion the Solis app and agroecological practices within their communities. And AE-Welten is one of them. They were trained in agroecology, in audiovisual content creation, and the use of the platform. And their role is to engage their peers and family members, create and share content on Solis, and support other farmers in producing their own videos. And they also provide continuous feedback to help improve the platform. And their leadership has been really essential to the success of Solis. And finally, to ensure the technical quality of the co-created practices and the videos, we developed a training curriculum focused on livestock production in Brazil. And this provides the foundation for the whole process, systematizing the co-creation method and presenting results from its use in Pará through learning cards. And this curriculum also offers practical guidance on how to use Solis to share and disseminate practices in other regions of the country. So next, please. So this brings us to our strategy for scaling Solis. So since co-creating locally relevant content is at the core of our approach, scaling isn't just about expanding access to the tool. It's really about creating the right conditions to replicate and grow the mechanism of co-creation and to strengthen farmer leadership. And achieving this requires both in-person and online engagement. So our primary strategy for expanding Solis beyond the community level is to engage local actors at the municipal and state levels. This includes farmer organizations, secretaries of agriculture and environment, and other NGOs. And many of these organizations are actively looking for cost-effective ways to deliver technical assistance and reach out to smallholder farmers. So as part of the project, we held workshops with these organizations in Pará and in the other state of Mato Grosso. And these were opportunities to gather feedback and share the Solis approach. And now we are working with interested institutions to explore how they can initiate and lead the creation of local knowledge communities to support farmer adoption of Solis. In parallel, we are also testing direct outreach to farmers in key livestock producing regions through social media and radio campaigns. And at this stage, our focus is really on local and regional expansion, and we believe this approach is the most effective path to scaling Solis in a meaningful and sustainable way. But we're also exploring national level partnerships. For instance, we're in discussion with Embrapa to integrate Solis into a broader project led by Embrapa Digital, spanning 10 municipalities across the countries. Go next, please. So this outlines our vision for the future, but now I'd like just to turn back and reflect on what we have achieved and share some key takeaways. So in this period, we've engaged nearly 1,500 farmers, managing a total of 84,000 hectares in Pará in this process. The public version of Solis was launched in November 24, and today we have 238 active users in Solis who are constantly sharing and commenting on more than 160 videos. So it's still early to measure the impact in terms of uptake of better practices, but we have reached important milestones. First, we've proven that it is possible to develop digital tools that align with the agroecological principles of co-creation, and we introduced a shift from a traditional top-down approach to a more participatory, practical approach to co-creation with farmers while enhancing their agency. Very important for us, the project has also created new opportunities for women and youth, who are groups who tend to be more tech-savvy, but often have less decision-making power on the farm. And with the Solis ambassadors and the active users, we have seen that they're gaining social recognition and influence within their families. So in just 2 years, we've built solid foundation for Solis, but we have also faced trade-offs that continue to pose challenges. So the first big question is, how do we scale up while maintaining the quality of engagements? So we deliberately prioritized participation and inclusion, but now we need to explore how local organizations can take the lead in developing digital learning communities. Other challenge is maintaining the quality and relevance of the content as the platform expands. And finally, the critical issue is the business model. So Solis will remain free for farmers. And for now, we are covering the cost from revenue generated by another app. But as it grows, we'll need to consider alternative revenue streams with partners while ensuring that Solis remains commercially independent, which is absolutely critical for us. And just to conclude my presentation, so you can go to the last slide, please. Just to highlight some key takeaways from our experience, very much in line with what Mariette mentioned. So first of all, it cannot be emphasized enough. Scaling agroecology with digital tool requires a shift from top-down tech-driven solutions to participatory farmer-led innovation. Farmers must be at the center of the design process, shaping the platform and the content based on their needs. And we must consider the diverse needs of subgroups, such as women, youth, and older farmers. Second, unlike conventional tools that simply deliver information, agroecological digital tools should foster two-way engagements and peer-to-peer knowledge exchange. The goal is not just to inform, but to connect people. Third, social recognition and local success stories are powerful drivers of adoption. Farmers are far more likely to trust content that is produced by their peers, and they place high value on having their stories published and celebrated. So since agroecology requires behavior change, these recognition mechanisms are not just beneficial, they're really essential. Then digital tools are not standalone solutions. Just putting an app on the App Store isn't enough. So it should really complement in-person work, enhance field interactions, and with real-time communication. As Mariette mentioned, it's also very important to acknowledge the risks of digital technology, especially for users with lower educational level who may be more vulnerable to misinformation. That's why digital literacy must be part of capacity building efforts so that farmers can use the tools effectively and know how to use the information they receive. And finally, interoperability is key. Too many tools operate in silos. So it's very important to enable platforms to connect and share data, also to be able to bundle different digital services for farmers. So bringing all of this together and sustaining it is not an easy task. So we as Solidaridad haven't solved all of these challenges yet, and we are still learning every day. And that's why I'm especially looking forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Violaine. Solidaridad really rolled up their sleeves, and this is a robust example of applying digital agency in practice. And you can see the many lessons and iterations necessary to do that. So please do put your questions into the Q&A, and I'm very happy to turn now to Viet Nam and an example of working with rice and a digital tool focused on performance assessment. It is my pleasure to introduce Trang Vu, a research scientist from the International Rice Research Institute. Over to you, Trang.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Trang. I am from the International Rice Research Institute, and I am part of the Transitions Digital Tools project. I'm very pleased to be here to share with you a story of how we in Vietnam through the Transitions program and in collaboration with our partners embarked on a mission to empower our incredible rice farmers and field extensions to create not just new tools, but new ways of work, the way that puts the farmers' knowledge and hands in weaving their sustainable future. And in Vietnam, the concept of agroecology. So in Vietnam, the concept of agroecology has well resonated for a long time. However, it has been discussed and agreed that for the rice system, it's still at level 1 of the agroecology transition scale according to Gleisman. So at this level of transition, it is important for efforts and interventions and support to provide the support that farmers need, and in the way that makes sense to them, or in the way that is accessible to them. So we did a study with our farmers and our field agents to see what can be supportive to them in terms of bridging digital tools with rice farming improvement for agroecology transition. It has been seen in our study that the most trusted and reliable source of information and advisory for farmer was still face-to-face discussion and meeting with field agents or field extensionists. And despite a very high rate of phone ownership, smartphone ownership and internet access, only 12% of them are using digital tools to support their practices. And even within this very low rate, agricultural digital apps fall very low behind mainstream media channels in terms of providing information to farmers. And in fact, only 3 to 4% of our farmers and field agents are using agricultural apps to support rice farming. However, 75% of farmers expressed the willingness to use digital tools. So seeing the challenges at the context of Vietnam in the Mekong River Delta and seeing the varying levels of digital literacy together with the small scale of farms and the scatteredness of fields in the region, we have together with the farmers developed or embarked on a journey to conceptualize a digital tool that is built from the ground up. We asked farmers what they needed or what would make a digital tool beneficial to them and what would make a digital tool usable for them. And that's how FarMoRe was conceptualized with this approach. It was designed with the user in the center and to create something that meets the needs of farmers and field agents at the capabilities that they are having to receive and to use it. FarMoRe was made to help record farmers' farming practices and also provide an assessment of their performance season after season. Besides providing this assessment, it gives a benchmark with scientific boundaries and a comparison with peer averages. So farmers can have insights into improving their farming practices and science-based data to share with their farmers, with their peers, to track progress and improve their farming practices. And thanks to the partnership with the Vietnamese government, FarMoRe was made free to use, accessible to all users, and it adheres to the data privacy policies. This is a live demonstration, an actual example of how a co-creation pathway was enabled through FarMoRe. So a farmer in the Mekong River Delta region, after seeing the assessment results in the tool, was intrigued to test new techniques in the next farming season. And at the end of the season, seeing the results, seeing the changes in his own results, he created a chat group on a local mobile app with his peers, with his fellow farmers, to share the information from FarMoRe. So this is not just about farmers using digital tools. This is about how they take advantage of the tool and the information provided to them for collaborative learning and to share insights and promoting dialogues with each other. It also provides a science-based basis for field agents to provide the services and advisory to farmers. So field agents were playing a very crucial role in our process. They were not just only our partners, they were the most active ingredient or the agent of our process. They were provided with advanced digital literacy training, and they were equipped with a training curriculum with instruction, protocols, and prompts to discuss with farmers about farming practices, to gauge their digital literacy, to collect their feedback, and to adapt different farming practices into the local context. according to the actual results in the tool. And over the last year, over 1,300 farmers and field agents were, and 41% of them were women, were trained using FarMoRe to improve their practices. And the tool was trained in all 13 Mekong provinces of the Delta, and it was received by agricultural officers at both national and province levels. I would also like to highlight the impact on our female agents. The tool has given them a scientific-based evidence to improve their reach and to facilitate their discussion with female farmers. So female farmers are more comfortable when they are working with female agents. And with this with this powerful tool in hands, female agents can freely and more confidently reach out to female farmers and discuss improving farming practices. Our scaling approach was two-pronged. So a bit of background, rice production in Vietnam is very crucial for food security, for the economy, and for environment management. Therefore, the government pays great attention and support to the rice sector. And so one sign of the strategy of scaling that we adopted was to create a policy impact and the buy-in of the government, so that the tool can be sustained and can be provided to all farmers regardless of their background. The tool, the FarMoRe tool, nested within a larger rice mill system, has been institutionalized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, and to help inform policy making and production planning. FarMoRe is also considered to be adopted for the 1 million hectare program of sustainable and low emission rice production in the Mekong of Vietnam. And it has received also interest from different governments like Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, to develop similar system and tools. The other side about scaling strategy was about wide-scale adoption. We reached out to other digital tools developers and the public in order to roll out the tool to the public. So for example, the greenhouse gas calculation module of the FarMoRe tool allows connecting and bundling with other existing tools for agricultural management. So not only FarMoRe, different tools of different private companies were also enhanced with this module. The FarMoRe has free access to public users, and it has also been introduced on national television and extension centers website to make sure that the large scale of the public is aware and can access to the tool. Some key takeaways from our experience with FarMoRe is that this can be considered a case study or a proof of concept that the importance that digital tools can be and should be the bridge between farmers and technology for the transition of farming technology according to agroecology principles. The user-centered design, in our experience, was paramount. It created a tool that truly meets the needs and the capabilities of our farmers. And capacity building and training for both farmers and extension were crucial for effective adoption and co-creation. And thirdly, the strong partnership with government agencies and different partners, different digital tools, and international organizations enable the national level impact and also the outreach to the region. I would like to stress one of the most important pillars in our lessons, which is the interpersonal, interhuman interaction that the tool supports. So digital tools are not to replace human interaction. Digital tools should actually enhance and empower the interaction through building trust adding science, providing insights to empower the co-creation and empower the dialogues with among different stakeholders. And of course, aligning the direction of tool development with policy and integrating it with larger initiatives will help to strengthen its uptake as well as sustainability. And it will also provide resources or provide the pathways to access more finance funding and for maintenance. And so ultimately, our experience with FarMoRe in Vietnam underscore a very powerful truth that is when farmers have the right tools in the right way, they can create a space for themselves to improve their knowledge and change behavior and bring other farmers with them. So I am very happy to share this experience with you. Thank you for listening. And I'm now very happy to answer any questions that you may have, and most importantly, to receive feedback, because of course, this is really just the beginning of this transition, and digital tools can do a lot more for farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Trang. Another excellent presentation. I think the audience probably has a sense of it's not just developing a digital tool, but really all of the infrastructure and social context and scaling and policy work associated with it that ultimately makes it successful. And the bottom line lesson from this exercise in both countries has been that essential human connection on the ground and facilitating input of farmers' knowledge. Okay, so we have a wonderful slew of questions. I'm going to start off with one that comes up regularly, which is a pretty simple question, but a real barrier in the field, which is the offline nature of a lot of farmers in rural areas. I would love it if each of the speakers could just comment briefly on some of the innovative ways in which farmers are able to access these sorts of knowledge systems and tools, even when they don't have access necessarily to internet. So for any of the speakers, who would like to go first? And maybe I'll just kick off by saying one technique that I know is of creating in, for example, towns, internet access in a cafe where farmers can still get information even if they might not have it in their village. Another is to be able to access, for example, WhatsApp and social media via their cell phones, even though they might not have internet access. Violaine, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And there are many questions on the chat regarding connectivity. So in our case, in the Brazilian Amazon, it's not anymore a challenge, but it was a challenge a few years ago. And what we did when we started with digital tools in this region was to really use community spaces to provide access to internet. So for instance, during many years, the point to access internet was the church. So farmers used to go there once a week, and they managed to have access to internet there. And then with the expansion of satellite internet, this has changed considerably, and I think this may happen in other areas. And there are also some solutions to develop some community-based knowledge internet access to provide access to some very specific networks of information. I know there are some very interesting experiences in Colombia, for instance, of community-based network for farmers. So there are some solutions, even if internet is not available broadly.
And
Yeah,
if
maybe
I may
in
add-
addition. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, and if I may add to the solutions that Violaine just raised, what the approach that we also took in the FarMoRe tool is that farmers do not only record their own activities, but they can link their information with the field agents that work with them. So when they do not have internet access, or when they do not have access to their phone, the field agents actually can fill in the information for them using the unique QR code created for the exact farmers. So that is another way where farmers and field agents can strengthen their communications and support each other with the data provided in the tool.
Yeah, so I think these are all great examples, and I've seen these myself as well. I think also in some occasions where farmers would access internet through the school of their children, for example. So those are all good examples. I think the one thing that they all have in common is that usually the farmer can only access those at certain moments in time. So the difference between perhaps a lot of us, where we are connected pretty much 24/7 nowadays, but in the case of farmers, that's different. So I think that's something that still needs to be considered when it's coming to also the design of these tools, that a farmer is not always connected, but just in certain moments in time. And that's something to consider in the design.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. The next question is related to the practical challenge of farmers using these tools. And I think this is very closely related to the question of connectivity. Could people comment on the practical challenges of encouraging farmers to use these tools?
Well, maybe since I was the last one in the previous round, I'll start off now. I think, I've seen, like, when something actually clearly shows a benefit, there's very little encouragement necessary, as long as, of course, people have the ability to also use that tool, and that includes, like, the actual literacy, but also, of course, can they afford to use the tool? If it's consuming too much data, it might be out of their ability to afford it. But if it shows a clear benefit, then usually encouragement is of limited necessity, right? And we're seeing that continuously with social media. The moment a farmer becomes connected, they're hopping on to Facebook and WhatsApp and YouTube, and nobody is encouraging them to do that. So I think that's something very important to consider. And then from there, you can just build, because you can figure out what is important and what are these benefits. Gonna stop there. I'd love to hear from the other speakers.
Any other comments, Violaine or Trang?
Yeah, I can complete on that. So not on the practical challenges of connectivity, because that was not our case in Brazil, but really the question of how we increase adoption and we retain users on the app. And what we actually learned with Solis is that it's very important to provide, a fun experience to farmers. And this is something that we forget sometimes, like really people want to identify themselves with the tool, and to create ownership, you also need to offer a pleasant experience. And this is what happened with Solis, because this idea really came from the farmers. And they want to have access to locally relevant content, but they also are very curious to see how a farmer is solving a very specific problem, and they also want to have fun. So I think we need to find the right balance between, technical content and also experiences that will create connections, because this is co-creation is also about connecting people together. So you also need to provide this kind of experience. And I think gamification is very interesting with digital tools. And this is really something that we have to use to engage and retain users.
As we are speaking of engaging and retaining users, it may also be relevant to mention incentives for user to keep using the tool, or to invite other people to use the tool. One of the channels to incentivize farmers and other users that we have experienced and may also suggest is to embed or to align the digital tool with larger programs or incentives, and especially, for example, in the case of FarMoRe, it is greenhouse gas calculation module can support the monitoring and reporting of greenhouse gas mitigation actions in rice farming, which can be connected to verifier and the certification of low emission products, and help farmers to assess carbon finance. So that is also another way that can be considered for the scaling up or the sustainability of digital tools.
Thank you. And sustainability of digital tools brings us to the question of business models, which was also in the Q&A. Could you speak a little bit about the sustainability of the tools in terms of the different business models you've adopted? They're quite different from each other. Trang, do you want to start?
Yes, I think you may have been able to see the differences in the business models between Solis and FarMoRe. So in the case of FarMoRe, because rice production in Vietnam is quite centralized, managed, and therefore the most important thing for farmers is to follow the instruction and the advice of the state or of agricultural officers, and which is also the most trusted channel for them. Therefore, we work with the government to institutionalize, so to develop develop a digital tool that aligns with both the farmers' needs and the government's policy and long-term strategy. So with the institutionalization of the tool, it is made free for everyone to access, and because it's aligned with the long-term strategies of the government, then it is promising to be sustained along the length of the strategy.
Yeah, that's a super interesting benchmark for us. Unfortunately, in the case of Brazil, this is not an option that we have, and we are still in the process of fine-tuning the business model for Solis. So currently, our business model is directly related to another tool that we have, to extension solution, and we are now exploring other revenue streams to cover the cost of Solis. And our main strategy is to connect with organizations who need to reach out to farmers and who need to disseminate their technical content. And since it's so challenging to have direct interactions with farmers, our value proposition to this organization is really to offer access to a high number of farmers. So our value proposition is our user base, and this will take time to build. So I think that when we really want to have digital tool for farmers to support agroecology, it really requires an investment upfront, because we need to really deliver value to farmers to create adoption. And then I think we can think about monetization option. But as I mentioned, the question of keeping it commercially independent is absolutely critical. So I would say it's much more around connection with institutional actors, as the example in Viet Nam.
Thank you. You've talked quite a bit in both presentations about embedding the tool in these larger policy and social contexts. Could you say a little bit more? There are some questions about how you link to either local agroecology movements or local sustainability, it could be local or national sustainability movements, and also, for example, the CG Living Labs, if at all, in Vietnam. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. We indeed did a review with various stakeholders, including the government stakeholders, farmer groups, cooperatives, local enterprises, and development partners, to explore the demands and explore the needs for a digital tool. And therefore, it was possible for us to connect them all together and see and then position ourselves or our project in the crossroad, where the tool can meet the demands of the farmers, and also can bring the farmers closer or more aligned with the policy of the governments. And maybe fortunately for us, the development partners and the private companies in Vietnam in the rice sector also support these government targets very strongly. Therefore, we were able to meet the needs and to provide a solution that can be aligned and that can be flexibly adapted to different users' needs. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to actually, Violaine, I'm not going to give you a chance to answer this one, because I want you each, if possible, to give a final statement. We have a lot of questions around the applicability of these tools to other locations, and also open access, to the information in these tools. Could you just conclude with maybe one sentence about the degree to which these tools are available for application elsewhere, or how they could be applied elsewhere? And then we'll turn to Viviane for the final closing statement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. FarMoRe and its larger system RiceMore is can be adapted or applied or adopted into different contexts of rice production, and also can be expanded to other crops as well. As we have been in conversation with different governments and different platforms, including the Sustainable Rice Platform, to use FarMoRe as a system for data collection reporting, but also as a tool for product certification and branding. So with its very flexible multi-purpose orientation, FarMoRe can be adapted to different contexts, and we are very welcome and we're open to enhance the interoperability of the tool. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will send contact information after this. Yeah, please, Violaine.
So yeah, in the case of Solis, Solis is really a channel and a process, a method to really disseminate knowledge. So it can be adapted to any production system, any context, but it requires this mechanism to co-create the content, to engage people. So it's not about just publishing and making the app available in other contexts. It really requires this process to create the content. And as it was also mentioned in the chat, it requires a minimum access to connectivity. So if you are in a location where farmers only have access to internet once a week or once a month, Solis is not, the best fit, I think. So it happens in other contexts where we operate as Solidaridad, and we use other tools which are offline first, so which provides functionalities that just works offline after the app is downloaded. But I think it's important to have in mind that context is changing. There are significant investment in digital public infrastructure. So the question of connectivity in the field will be very different from what we are seeing today in 5 years. And when we started, 10 years ago in Para, farmers did not have access to internet. Nobody had smartphone. And now 10 years after, everybody has satellite internet and smartphone, and they use social media much more than we do. So things are changing fast. It's important to have it in mind.
Thank you, Violaine. And now over to Viviane Filippi, who is a program officer from IFAD, to give our final closing remarks. Viviane?
Thank you, Lini. Thank you a lot. It is really my pleasure to close this webinar, the Inclusive Digital Tool Project, which, as Lini mentioned, is part of the Agroecological Transition Program. It's financed by the European Commission and managed by IFAD. So a special thank to our speakers, sharing such a diverse and practical insights on how the digital innovation can drive the agroecological transition. For the closing remarks, I would like to share just a few thoughts with you. I'd like to reflect together with you on the preconditions of digital tools-led transition, because one of the takeaways is that digital transformation is not just about technology, it's about people. And for digital tools to truly support our agroecology, we must first ensure that the enabling conditions are there. We talked about digital literacy, the access to devices and the internet, and how the tools should be designed with farmers' realities in mind. So for this reason, the co-creation of knowledge is not optional. It is essential. And that's why the AE-TPP project underlined and focused on it so much. Because when farmers, extension agents, and local institutions co-design the tools, the result is not only more relevant, but is also just more likely to be adopted and retained. And we also learned that success depends on strong networks of local actors. Farmers' organizations, academic institutions, many other partners. If they don't work together to support the adoption at scale, this is just going to be another dying digital tool. But we cannot deny that there are also challenges. First of all, the participatory process takes time, as Violaine said, and this can slow down the scale. So we have a trade-off there. Farmers are also prefer integrated tools, not fragmented systems that require maybe multiple logins and platforms. We know that the user-generated content is powerful, but it also raises questions in terms of quality assurance. And we must not forget the importance of designing viable business models, as we just discussed, especially if we want to keep these tools for free. But despite all the hurdles, digital tools do create value, and we have seen at the individual level, the tools developed by the transition are improving access to tailored technical advice and also performance tracking. This is empowering farmers to assess their individual results against both best practices, agroecological best practices, but also their peer benchmarks. And at community level, we have seen how digital tools can catalyze peer learning, shared knowledge, and in some cases, even collective problem solving. And so by blending the on-the-ground training on one side and the remote digital support tools can really significantly extend the reach and continuity of technical assistance and the accrual of agroecological training. So I do not hesitate to say that the transformative potential is real, is there. And as we have seen, farmers respond very positively to social recognition, local success stories, and this inspire change and spread innovation. And I mean, the benchmarking tools create positive competition, open space to peer-to-peer learning. And when digital tools align with national priority, as we have seen in Viet Nam with FarMoRe, they can support some systemic shifts in enhancing FarMoRe agency and also advancing policy goals. That's clearly very important from the point of view of some multilateral agencies. So in my view, what today's discussion makes very clear is that the digital tools are not a silver bullet clear, but when very thoughtfully designed, locally rooted, they can be a powerful lever for agroecological transition. And the road ahead calls for collaboration, investment, but also a deep commitment to equity, learning, and local ownership. So let's keep pushing the digital tools and don't just work for farmers, but with them, putting producers, especially youth and women, at the center of the innovation. So thank you again for your participation, and let's keep the momentum going.
Thank you, Viviane. Thank you to all of our speakers, to our technical support team, and to the larger transitions team as well. We will be sending by email the copy of the presentation and our contact information. Have a good day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.